Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining the Empowering Learners webinar series. This webinar is part of our Ready, Set, Smart series, where we provide a best practice look at the Smart Ambassador community and how they incorporate Lumio into their teaching practices. In this spotlight session, Smart Ambassadors will show you how they create lessons and activities focused on classroom instructional strategies. My name is Jennifer Underwood, and I'm the Professional Development Specialist from Florida. This webinar is all about Lumio plus other digital tools equals harmony in a gamified music classroom, featuring Dan Ausbury. Dan is originally from New York City, but now resides in Puerto Rico. Dan's background is early childhood in theory and composition music. He has an MA in educational communication and technology from NYU. He took a job with the Department of Defense Education Activity and moved to Puerto Rico, where he currently resides. After Hurricane Maria, he was offered a position to teach middle school band, choir, general music, and high school jazz ensemble, which he happily accepted. Dan has combined his love of music and gamification to create amazing lessons using Lumio. He is a storyteller, loves fantasy, and enjoys gamification. Combining those three, Dan has created engaging and rigorous lessons using SMART. Dan feels that teachers have only begun to scratch the surface of a vast reservoir of possibilities in combining these elements, and he welcomes any brave soul interested in sharing and collaborating. Dan is joined by Casey Grammatic, Smart's North American Communities Manager from Texas. We encourage participation in this webinar. If you have questions, ask those in the chat box during the presentation, and I'll either integrate them into the flow of the session, or we will hold them to be answered at the end during our Q&A period. We're going to start sharing resources from today's webinar in the chat, where I will be. Also, for participating today, you get a certificate provided after you complete our brief survey feedback survey. At this point, I'm going to turn things over to Casey so that we can dive into today's webinar, Lumio plus other digital tools equals harmony in a gamified music classroom.
Thank you, Jennifer. I am so excited to be here with Dan to share with you guys how he incorporates Lumio into his classroom, Lumio Smart Notebook, and some other smart tools into his classroom to really bring things to life. I've had a chance to meet with Dan a couple of times now, and his passion for education is just, it's just so amazing and such a great person to talk to, and it really revives your excitement about what's possible for teaching and learning. So I'm so excited that you guys are here with us today. Before we have Dan jump in, we'd love for you to have the ability to actively participate today. So I'm going to pop out how you can join our session today. If you open a web browser, you can go to hellosmart.com and you can join us as a guest. You don't need to sign in since you're just going to be with us temporarily today. So go to hellosmart.com, choose join as guest, and you'll enter my class ID, which is 11311. I'll be navigating the slides on my side with Dan kind of giving me the feedback of where we should go and what he wants to talk about along the way. So hellosmart.com, enter class ID 11311, and that will pull you in today's session. That Dan will be walking us through some amazing ways that you can use this technology with the music classroom. But what I really loved is, as I was talking to Dan, is while he focuses on music personally in his classroom, everything that he's showing us today are things that really are applicable no matter what content area you teach. So that's something that I really love about this session, is that we can easily see how it could work, whether I'm a science teacher, whether I'm a music teacher, whether I'm working in the arts. There's a lot of flexibility in how he talks about our tool. Jennifer will make sure that the directions for joining today's session are in the chat so that you guys can jump in. Again, go to hellosmart.com, join as a guest, and you'll enter class ID 11311. And that will pull you in to today's session. So Dan, I will close this up and move. I think you have a shout out for us to jumpstart our day, get to know a little bit about who we have in the audience with us.
Hey, thank you, Casey. Yeah, I put together this little shout it out. It'd be nice if we can take a few minutes to just write a few things about you. I made columns. I think I made one for music teachers, or if you're a music teacher, you can put your name and your where you work, your location, subject you teach, grade level, into the appropriate column there. That would be fantastic. And then we
Your
would,
end, guys, just so you know what you're looking for, on your end, you're going to see a little white box that you can type it. So you're going to just tell us a little bit about who you are. So maybe, like Dan said, your name, maybe where you're jumping in from today, so we know where everyone is coming from. Maybe just a little bit about what you teach, and then you'll see underneath that little white box, you can choose what category to send your information to. So we see that someone sent something to the administrator section. We see someone that added something to the school education technologist system. So if you're a music teacher, you'd send it to the music teacher. If you're a non-music teacher, you can send it there, but that'll give us a good heads up about where people are coming from and what your focus is, and that will help Dan, Jennifer, and I to make sure that we're connected and talking to all of you guys.
great. I see we got 3 music teachers already. Okay, super.
So we have Haley. She's an elementary music teacher joining us from the Holly area schools. And then we have a music teacher, K-12, elementary music band, chorus, and guitar. You have a big job for sure covering all of that. Here's a K-3 gen ed music teacher. Tracy coming to us as a general ed music teacher in Columbia, South Carolina,
Super.
teaching pre-K through grade 5 this year.
All right.
That's amazing. And then we also have a non-music teacher joining us, an education consultant. Welcome. We're glad you're here to join us as well. And then we have Scott. He is a director of educational technology, K through 12, and a musician. Awesome. I think you saw in Dan's headshot that he also likes to play music. What instruments do you play, Dan?
That's the bass. That's an upright bass. Yeah, I started playing when I was 8 years old. I started playing trumpet, and then when I was in 5th grade in a public school in New York, the teacher was a cellist, and she convinced the Board of Education in New York to give her a classroom full of string instruments. So if you were in Miss Schussheim's class, you got to play a string instrument, violin, viola, cello, or bass. If I was the tallest kid in the class, I got to play the bass. And,
Awesome.
so
And stuck
that
with it,
went
I
on.
guess.
Yeah. I see we have a lot of elementary people here. Interesting. I really taught the whole range. My youngest student ever was 2.4 years old when I was a Montessori teacher. I did Montessori for 8 years when I was in New York. I was a preschool teacher there. And I had a chance to do an awful lot of singing and an awful lot of storytelling. So,
which I think probably works for all grade levels.
yeah. I know exactly. As I moved up, kids still love to hear a good story.
So Dan, how do you use shout it out with your students? Do you use this tool with your students as well?
Yeah, I do. Occasionally, I use it for reactions to listening. Sometimes I will put on a piece of music to listen to and ask them to use shout it out. As you'll see later, I also use some of the graphic organizers for that same other graphic organizers for them to write into. But yeah, definitely. As music teachers, some of our standards are related to not only producing music, reading music, and playing music, but also understanding, listening to music, and responding to music. So this is a great tool for that. You can make the categories anything you want, from instrumentation to the feeling that the music evokes, to what it reminds one of. So definitely, this is a good tool for that.
Awesome.
Okay.
Well, it's good to see who we have with us. It looks like quite a few
Yeah,
music lovers, which is
super.
great. And so
Yeah.
let's go on and showcase some of the great things that you've been using with your students.
Beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so the first thing that I thought about when I was asked to do this workshop was some teachers and their students fall into kind of three categories in terms of the student to computer ratio. When I started out using smart boards many years back, that was with the old smart board with the arm coming out of the wall and the projector. And that was the only thing, that we didn't have other computers in the classroom. And then little by little, there were groups of computers, so we could make stations for students to be at. And then this year, we're very fortunate that we can have one-on-one computer to student ratio. So I've got kids walking into my class every day with a Chromebook. So that offers other possibilities. But I would like to just start with what you can do if you only have a smart board.
Yeah, I mean, I think, with the pandemic, there's quite a few schools that have moved closer to that 1-to-1 ratio.
Yeah.
But even if you are in that 1-to-1 ratio, it's still really good to think about different ways to connect with students. And sometimes you want to do maybe a whole class, more of that one board type of activity. And sometimes you want to leverage certain devices to do centers or stations, like you mentioned, even if you have options to have 1-to-1. And then sometimes makes sense for that 1-to-1. So I love how you're breaking this down for us in ways that we might use these tools, no matter what situation that we're in or what situation applies to what we're doing with our students at that time.
You know, I think something Casey said is really important, that even if you have the one-on-one ratio, that doesn't mean that kids should always be on their computers, and you can use the smart board alone for many, many different things, and we'll see some of that today. Okay, so let's look at three of the things that I came up with for if you have a smart board only, or if you're just choosing to use a smart board that particular day. So one of them is assuming that students have computers at home and internet access at home, you might be giving them Lumio assignments. And I do that. I put assignments, I put links for Lumio assignments into our LMS. Ours happens to be Schoology, and that works fine. But on the board, what I would need to do is really walk the kids through how that assignment is to work. So modeling how they're going to be working in Lumio at home in the classroom is really important. Second way that I use the smartboard a lot is using Lumio games. And there are a whole bunch of Lumio games that are really quite useful in a music classroom. And we'll be looking at a few of those. And then the third way is smart notebook activities. I think you will see there are certain attributes Smart Notebook has that are really super for music teachers. And we'll look at some of those possibilities.
And I really like, for those of you that maybe don't have a smart branded interactive display, but have maybe a projector, or maybe have even just a TV, what's nice is that when Dan was talking about modeling Lumio assignments that can be done at home, even if you have maybe a TV or a projector, you can still use Lumio and still use some of the tools that Lumio has to offer, like those games he was talking about, on those devices as well. You don't have to have a smart branded board to use Lumio. So that's a good thing to just take note of.
Oh, that's great, Casey. Thank you for that. All right, so here's one example of the game show, the Lumio game show. What's nice about this for music teachers is that you can include graphic files. Now, this is particularly important for us as music teachers because it means you can include notation. So this is an example where kids had to, I see Casey is her music.
I don't read music, guys.
Yeah, this is major key signature. So yes, all right, Casey, way to go. All right. And here I can set up the class with 2 different teams, and each team has does their turn taking. It comes up to the board, and they can go on to the next one. What's it going to be, Casey?
So one of the things, I honestly don't know how to read music, so excuse my ignorance, guys. But one of the things that I want to say that I love, because like you said, Dan, if you're doing this whole class, you can pull in, you can have your students maybe on 2 teams. One of the things I like to do is to actually set up where I have where we add kind of like that Who Wants to Be a Millionaire element. So I might have where they can confer with a friend, or they might be able to have 30 seconds to check their notes or things along those lines. So when kids are up at the board and it's their turn, they're not just spotlighted. It's about them really using their team to kind of help figure out the results and the answers too. So I love that they have that you can do that with this as well.
Yeah, definitely. You can bring that collaborative aspect into this for sure. Okay, when we go on to the next game there. So this one, memory match. And when I was a kid, we used to call it concentration, but everybody else seems to know it as memory. But once again, since you can put in, use graphic files, then you can include notation. Kids can work their way through it. They can work in teams, they can work in pairs, doesn't matter. So you can have them matching anything that involves notation and with anything that involves text.
This is a great one. I love, if you notice that Dan added images on some of his, so you'll see this little blue square, and that allows students to actually magnify their image as well. So if you're a math teacher, for example, and you have a graph here and the kids need to zoom in and see it a little bit more clearly, they can do that when you add those images, because they have that magnification piece in place, which I think is great. Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I've used that a lot. I mean, I only have a few examples of games here, but there are many different games and backgrounds that you can use that are really a lot of fun. So you can really have a lot of variety here. So here's another one. Off to the races. And once again, with this one, you can include notation. So your notation becomes the question. So the first question is it 3 beats? So assuming that it's in 4/4 time. So that would be false. So it's an A. Okay. All right. And as you're going, you can speed up as the students get that green showing up there. They can kind of speed their person along, which is always fun. So it adds a fun element too. And we're going to have lots of different questions. And again, this reinforces what Dan was saying before, that you also have, be true. You can also have images in here to go with your different questions, which I love as well. Yeah. And this is a fun one for kids. You might have noticed, I kind of clicked on it quickly, but you can have up to 4 different students competing against each other at the board if you have a board. If not, you can even have students playing side by side on a device as well. Yeah. Or you can have 4 teams, and then have them turn taking through there. Oh, one of my favorites. Everyone loved Monster Quiz. The only thing with Monster Quiz is that that it does not have, cannot put notation in it unless they've changed something recently. But what you can do is put words in, so you can put in text. So if it's anything related, in the music curriculum, anything related to descriptions of instruments, or anything related to composers, anything like that, then that can go that can go in there. Yeah, if you haven't seen Monster Quiz, you want to see kids jumping out of their seats, definitely you want to use Monster Quiz. Monster Quiz for sure gets kids excited. So you guys are on the same team, but you all are responsible for answering the questions individually, which I love. But what I love also about Monster Quiz is that I'm able to end the quiz at any time. So I know for me, when I was trying to get ready to leave a classroom, or right at the end of the day, we're trying to get through something last minute and then we have to move on. But I want to make sure that the kids don't leave with any misconceptions. So the way that I can do that is I can do a Monster Quiz. And this can be used with our youngest students all the way to our oldest kids, depending on what types of questions. And you can customize how long a student has to answer or things along those lines. But I can always hit end quiz, and I know I'm going to have a lot of groans in the background when I hit end quiz because it'll stop the quiz for you. But when I hit end quiz, we see who our winners are, but I can also click on review. So I don't have to wait for everyone to complete the quiz for me to be able to address this. So I can see that the mystery boxers, you guys got the question right the first time, 36% of the time, icebergers about 21% of the time, and it moves down from there. But what's really nice too is I can hit class review and I can take a quick look at how students did. Now, because I cut you guys off so early, you're going to see a lot of this gray, which indicates that students didn't have a time to finish those questions. Ordinarily, you would see all of that finished if you gave your students a little bit more time. But what I love is I have this pie chart that really helps me quickly understand how the class did as a whole. So here I could see, okay, they were pretty divided on whether the oboe is a double reed instrument. So that's something we can talk about right then before they leave. Or the second one, quite a few people got the question incorrect. The saxophone is part of the brass family. If you look, we were pretty heavy on true. So that's where I could address that and talk about that really quickly. Versus if you look at question 3, guitar is a typical orchestral instrument. Most people, everyone that answered got that correct, that's false. So I wouldn't have to address that. I could focus in on the questions that were clearly misunderstood, or that clearly the students didn't have the right answer for. Jennifer, before we go on, are there any questions that have come up from the things that Dan shared so far?
No questions right now.
Okay.
Right.
Definitely, I should say that the way I organize my class is if I have games, they're going to be, at the end of the class, I reserve a certain amount of minutes for game time. And the games are going to be reviewing concepts or skills, which we've had in class. What's going to come up later is stuff that I put at the beginning of a class as more as like a do now or bell ringer kind of activity. So so now we're moving into the music theory stuff. These are activities which I developed by creating different templates. So there is a template, not a template, a manipulative that's in Lumio. And when I started working with that, I realized it was great, but it didn't really have quite enough stuff that I needed. So I started making my own templates. And the way that I did that was I usually would go to Smart Notebook and put it together in Smart Notebook first, and then port it over to Lumio. And I can make templates for meeting all kinds of needs in my music curriculum. This one in particular is rhythm. It's just an exemplar. I think behind those pictures of us is a sound file. So I recorded something so that kids could listen to me counting and clapping out a rhythm as an exemplar, and then they can see it. So then on the following page, they would be able to do it themselves, would be an example of rhythmic dictation.
Yeah, so if you look over to on my screen on the right, I had an audio piece. It looks like it's giving me a little bit of trouble right now, but ordinarily you would just be able to play that as a student. We've been having internet issues all day with the storm, so I'm sure it's on my end. But what's neat about what Dan's done here is you'll notice that all of these objects are infinitely cloned, meaning that he's never going to run out. So his students can do all sorts of amazing things with these notes that he's put together on this page. He indicated to you guys that he built a lot of these things in Smart Notebook, which you can certainly do. And Smart Notebook's a great tool to give you some really amazing creation opportunities. And we definitely have some Smart Notebook webinars that you can jump in to learn more about. But I thought I'd show you really quickly where you can, the way that you might be able to do this in Lumio as well. So I'm going to just take a moment. On the left side, I have the ability to edit really quickly. So what's going to see on your side, those of you that are part of my class right now, you're going to see that it's going to end the lesson for you temporarily, but you'll come right back in when I'm done editing. So I'm going to click here and I'm going to hit edit lesson. And when I do that, it's going to take me back to this main page that I was just in. And what's neat is I can come in and I can click on this blue plus bar over here. And I'm going to show you where you can get a manipulative that Dan referred to. So when you hit that blue plus button, it brings up our Lumio dashboard where we can add additional content, search for content, create some of those awesome games Dan was showing us. But there's also this green manipulatives button. When I click on that, one of the options we have is the ability to add these musical notes. Now, as Dan said, he saw this, but there were some pieces that he needed that weren't listed here. So he created some of his own pages, which is fantastic and really easy to do here in Lumio as well. So I'm not going to add that right now. I'm going to go back to the page that Dan, that I was just looking at with Dan, and quickly show you how easy it is to create an infinite cloned object. So when you add an image or text to any page, if you click on that image, you'll notice that you have this down arrow. And when I click on that, one of my options is infinite cloner. So when I click on that, now I'm going to have as many of these infinitely cloned music notes as I would like to. So that's a really neat thing that you can do to add to your page. You can delete the ones that you don't want as well, but it's very easy. You just click on any object and you would have that ability to infinitely clone any of your objects. So something that you can do in Lumio as well as Smart Notebook. So if you're not using Smart Notebook currently, you can still use that same idea Dan has, but do it in Lumio itself. And once I hit finish editing, it's going to take you guys right back into the session and take us back to the page we were just sharing with you guys. So that's what I love about this as well, is that students can be pulled in. Now, one of the things, Dan, I was when I was thinking about in regards to these awesome templates that you have is the ability for students to be able to work on these pages as well. So do you have students actually move and manipulate these in your class?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. So yeah, it can be set up as a dictation exercise. This particular one, music teachers out there, I'm sure, are familiar with Chrome Music Lab. One of the wonderful things in Chrome Music Lab is a section called Rhythm, where you have these two monkeys playing 3 different instruments. And so what I did is I set up this template with 3 lines, one for each instrument. So if you were in Chrome Music Lab as a student and you made your own rhythm loop, then you could then come back over here and notate it. Because in Chrome Music Lab, it's set up more like a drum machine with just little squares. But here you can actually say, okay, now you did that over there. What would that look like in real notation? Okay. So yeah, I also use these templates. I might put in a melody or I might put in a rhythm of my own and ask the kids to then put the count in. So they put in their 1 and 2 and 3, 4, this kind of thing. So there's a lot of different possibilities. There's labeling things that the teacher creates. There's creating things that the student made. And there is also the possibility of dictation. So kids can hear something that the teacher recorded, and then students have to notate it. Now on this one, music teachers should be familiar with the body percussion work that's out there. So I put down the letters SPCF for stamping, patting, clapping, and finger snapping. So if you work with body percussion stuff and you're having kids doing rhythms, body percussion, usually it's just call and response, or kids coming up with their own interesting rhythm. But if you want to make a connection with traditional rhythm notation, then you can use a template such as this one to actually notate what they did with their bodies, with their stamping, patting, clapping, and finger snapping.
I love that. And I always like to do that with students, even as a non-music teacher. We did a lot of that for patterns and things like that too. So that has a real relevance no matter what situation you're in. One of the things that Dan was talking about with this Chrome Music Lab, which I thought was interesting, was that they were going to a different website to do a little activity, and then they were coming to kind of track and record their thinking here. So one of the things you might notice right now is if you try and drag any of the music notes up, you can't. They're stuck to the page. And that's because this page is set up to view only for you guys as students, and it's set up for the teacher to be able to manipulate. But what's really neat is I can change that at any time. So if I click these people where I have that number 15, if I click on that, I have the option of converting this page into an individual handout. So you each have your own copy. I could put it into a group workspace. If I wanted students to work in groups to create rhythms and patterns and things along those lines, I could do that. Or I could even make it a whole class whiteboard where we're all in the same space together. If I want to make this more of like an assessment or a check for understanding, I might want to make that individual handout. So I'm going to click on that. And you'll see on your side now that you can hit start. And so as soon as you hit start, your names will start to populate here. And you'll notice when you hit start that now you can drag those music notes up and actually use them, start to create that rhythm or that music that you heard or worked with on that Chrome, on the Chrome Music website, which I think is really neat.
Yeah.
The other thing that's really,
yeah, really important, being able to, that's what I do most of the time. So when I have like do now activities, it is set up as an individual handout activity. So kids know they go into Schoology, they go to the link in the do now folder, they open it up, and immediately they see the activity. Maybe they need some explanation, maybe they don't, but they go right in there. And since it's an individual handout activity, they immediately start doing it. Nobody else sees what they do. And then I can walk around the classroom, see what they're doing, and then it's recorded later, so I can access it, for my own assessment purposes.
Absolutely.
So,
I love that. Yeah.
Great.
I love that you said, walking around, because remember, just because the kids are doing something digitally doesn't mean that we shouldn't still be walking around and having those conversations, those rich conversations with our students. But like you said, I love that I can also click on my students' work and see that happening in real time. So if Diana was working on this right now, we'd see that happening. And what's neat too, as a teacher, is I have some tools on my left side that allows me to give feedback too. So if Diana's on the right track, I can give her some really positive feedback, or if she's struggling, I can give her some suggestions. If she's not at work, I could put a big question mark to let her know I'm watching her.
Yeah.
And she would be able to see that. And then I can also move through and look at other students as they're hard at work as well. We can see some that gamer one starting to move some of those music notes around. So I love that I can check in and give feedback to our participants. So I might say something like, I have no idea if what this person is doing is wow, but it looks wow to me. There's music instruments on the page. So I can send a little message to this person, to Jamie, and they'll get feedback too. So you can even put digital stickers on their pages to give them feedback. Dan, what would you tell Jamie about their work?
Yeah, well, he understands how to count. Although I would say that in that second bar, Jamie got 3 beats and you need 4. So you need a dot maybe after that half note.
Awesome.
Anyway,
so I love all these different backgrounds that you've made and you've shared. I think this is a great way to kind of highlight some of the possibilities. Jennifer, any questions before we move on? Because I know that Dan has some other cool things to share today.
Before the end, we did get a request to show us how to make that great monster quiz that you've created. So I said we would save that to the end, but I'm just bringing it up so we remember.
Thanks, Jennifer. We for sure will show you how to make a monster quiz. It's very easy and lots of fun.
Awesome.
All right. So Dana, do you want to, excuse me, guys, did you want to jump into the learning piano notes, or you also have, I loved that we talked about the different music that you had and how you use that.
So yeah, as I was saying before, music teachers do spend good amount of time having kids listen to music and respond to music, trying to use musical vocabulary, things that they have learned in class, and apply that to what they're hearing. One of the things that I do is that I have them compare different songs or different pieces of music. For instance, I had them listen to 2 different versions of Eleanor Rigby by the Beatles, one by the Beatles, and then another one by Caetano Veloso, Brazilian musician. And then I use the graphic organizers to have them put their reactions, put in, how did it feel to them? What did it feel like? What did it remind them of? If they have some idea of genre, okay, how would they label it? And that's always an interesting thing when in middle school years, what they come up with in terms of a genre. Instrumentation, what instruments did they hear? Okay.
I love this. And one of the things you might notice is that Dan added a YouTube video, and within Lumio, you have YouTube videos that don't have any ads and they don't have any comments. So it allows you to have that nice, clean version of the video right within your lesson rather than having to go to a secondary tab. And I can hit play and we can listen to one of my favorites. And then I love, Dan, how you then added that follow-up with this graphic organizer. I'm wondering, one of the ways that I would think of using this graphic organizer is maybe as a more whole class whiteboard where everyone can be contributing at the same time as they're listening to that music. So you could have, in this case, where all of us can be sharing different instruments that we hear, different feelings it's evoking, different genres that it reminds us of, and we'll see everyone's work all coming in this one space together. What's nice that we have added to this whole class whiteboard is we can also pause editing. So we could have it paused for right now, and then when we've done listening to this song, then I can unpause it and have students start to add text to share what instruments they hear and fill out these 3 different categories.
Okay, super. So let's move on. Here we go. So I had another example, which was a lot of fun with kids. I played the Ride of the Valkyries by Wagner, not telling them what it was about, and then after they listened to it, then they had to react to it without knowing what it was really about. And then we would talk about how it is music from an opera and what Valkyrie are. And then after that, I played a film clip from the movie Apocalypse Now. And in that film clip, you see soldiers that are in, we might get ads on this one, I don't know.
Why doesn't every home in the US have solar panels? The #1 reason is not about sunlight or weather or even politics. It's actually just because most people don't know that solar...
But I love how you allow for that as well, to able to bring in that.
Hearing the music in a very, very different context. And so then in the next, so does the music make sense to you in this context of this film? Why or why not? So the important thing is getting kids to really use critical thinking skills in comparing, contrasting, and thinking about how music can be used, the emotions that it creates, or maybe the politics that are involved in the music making. Wagner certainly brings up a lot of that as well. So very, very important way of using Lumio. Okay, so we're going to move on to Smart Notebook. Okay, so as I said, you've been using Smart Notebook for more years than I've used Lumio because it's been around for a long time. One of the nice things about Smart Notebook is its ability to attach sound files to objects. So you can create squares, but then you can add a sound file so that when you click on the square, you would be able to hear something. Is it sounding?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, so the idea here is you have these squares that look identical because I duplicated them, but they have different notes, and you want to find the notes that are the same pitch. So once you find them, you can pair them together on your screen. And then once you finish the pairing, then you can put them in pitch order from lowest to highest. So you have two important skills involved over here. So it's this is really fun. Now where I got this idea from though is back in my Montessori years, because there is a Montessori material called the Montessori bells. The bells look identical, but they don't sound identical. Can you show us the next slide there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so here you can see Montessori bells, beautiful material. So very young kids can tap each bell and then find the ones that match. And then once again, they can put them in hierarchical order from lowest pitch to highest pitch. Okay, so another one that I came up with, let's see, can we shrink the screen down a little bit, or I'm not sure if that's, oh yeah, you can go into, yeah, there we go.
Oh, so I went to language setup, not page setup.
Yeah. It's the screen with, there we go. Okay.
There we go.
There we go. All right, beautiful. All right, so this is a similar idea, but I've given each pitch a different color. And I don't know if these are the proper Orff or Kodai colors, but nonetheless, the ones on the bottom are infinitely clonable. So I can just pull notes up, and then I can make my own melody. Now, in this case, there is no rhythm, but kids can decide to organize their pitches in any particular way that they want to make a melody of their own.
This seems like a very relaxing thing I should do when I need to have like just a refresh before I get back to work, Dan.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, now the next one is similar. Next one is similar, but here I've added some other stuff down on the bottom. Now, notice that I put a little piano keyboard there. Now that piano keyboard is just made out of Smart Notebook rectangles, and then you attach a sound file, so it's playable. You can play that little piano. But if you slide down a bit, there we can see, can you slide down the screen a little bit? Yeah, there we go. So once kids make a melody, then they can put the pitches onto a staff. So whatever order they are, I just meant to notate it. You could do that too. Yeah, you could pull them right down so that they are above the staff, and then do the notation. So this would be, again, connecting sound that they are instinctually choosing. They are creating a melody by pitch alone, and then they're associating that with what they learned about notation in the treble clef. Okay, on the next one, some music teachers use Kodai hand signals. And I mean, this is just one example. There's a million different ways that this can be used. So the students can match the Kodai hand sign. They're just tiles that can be moved around and match them to the notation that you have there. In this particular case, you can see up there, I said note pitched only. So if you click on the notes, not the hands, then it should make the sound. Yeah, so once again, you could actually infinitely clone the hand signs. There's just tons and tons of possibilities. So kids could notate a melody that way. Or if you want them to notate some particular melody, they could do that. So lots of possibilities there. The next one.
So we're down to like 10 minutes, but I wanted to show, because you had a couple of some fun ones with the spinner, so I wanted to be able to talk about this too.
Oh yeah. Okay, all right. Well, okay. So just quickly, let's run through this. So we got a spinner over here. One of the nice things that you can do in Smart Notebook is have a spinner, and I set it up for kids that this is more advanced. This is high school level stuff. Learning about the modes of the major scale. So Casey, if you can move that yellow, that should be all linked together. Just pull it. Okay. So if I put the number 1, move it over to where it says D for do, then that would be a major scale. Now, can you click on the D? Okay, and the R. Yeah, keep going up. Okay, so you would hear a major scale. Now let's move it up 1 square. No, just move it up 1 square. Yeah, so the 1 is under the R. Okay, now what they have is a Dorian scale. So if you were teaching this, this would be a really nice way to show kids that on a major scale, you can start on any note and you will get a different mode. Okay.
I see you have a different one that has also a spinner. I love the spinner, so I was intrigued.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one where kids would be a little more complex, and you're asking them to create their own scale pattern. So depending on the mode that they want. But this is more advanced stuff. So we tend to think of Lumio and Smart Notebook and these kind of game-like activities as being for the younger kids on our spectrum. But as you can see, this is really very high-level music theory stuff.
I love that you're saying that, Dan, because like you said, really you're in charge. Whoever's using Lumio is in charge of how they use it, right?
Yeah.
You're deciding what kind of content goes in. And so if you're looking through the lens of the grade level that you're teaching, the content that you're teaching, and that's going to really allow you to see how this tool can be used for that particular purpose versus whether it's, so if I'm looking through the lens of a K-5 music teacher, I'm going to be looking at it slightly differently than I am if I am a band director, for example. But you can use these different tools no matter whether you're that high school band director or whether you're a K-5 music teacher. It's just depending on what your standards are for your students, what you're trying to accomplish with them. But I also love that all of the activities you showed are really engaging and interactive for the student. So it's really, from what I've seen, is you're putting more of the work on the student versus you're making them be the thinkers, which I think is really fantastic as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, where are we now?
Any questions, Jennifer, from your side? And I know someone wanted to show how to make that monster quiz, so I want to make sure we have time set aside for that.
Okay.
Yeah, no other questions, just some great feedback. They're very excited about being able to share this with others. So I put the the scaled back version of the examples that you were able to share so that teachers can also grab this and put this in their Lumio library. So just lots of great feedback.
One of the things I'll say too, with our time being limited as it is, Dan does some really neat things with his class beyond the work that he showed you today with the music notes. Two of the things that are really exciting, and I think this is just going to be a reason why we have to have Dan back. One thing that he's really been exploring and doing with his students is talking about how to do escape rooms, using a combination of tools, Lumio being one of those tools. And I know, for example, one tool that he used with Lumio for one of his escape rooms is our flip out cards. Dan, really quickly, we don't have a ton of time, but I wanted you to be able to quickly share how you use this feature as part of an escape room.
Okay, so the flip out cards, one of the nice features about it is you can put a piece of music, you can put a measure on there or any piece of music. Again, the little blue square, if you click on that, you won't be able to do it now, but in the real flip out, you would be able to, it would blow up, you would be able to see it well. But the other thing is that you can shuffle them around. So I'm asking the kids, okay, these are the notes. Now you have to figure out what the song is. And this would be for like a jazz ensemble. And I had, the challenge was to figure out that this was part of the melody for How High the Moon. So once they put them together in the right order, then flip them over, that will give them a set of numbers. It will give them a code, which would be able to take that to the Google form, and then it would move them on to the next level. So the idea was they had to get through 4 different rooms, locked rooms. And to do that, they needed to use flip out in order to be able to find those 4 different melodies.
I love that. So Dan's been really passionate about doing things like escape rooms, digital escape rooms in his classroom. In addition to that, something else that he's been really passionate about. So if you also are passionate about the idea of sort of gamifying your classroom, I definitely encourage you to maybe reach out to Dan and see how he's doing it. He's learned a lot along the way and has some really good insight and has some really cool things that he's doing. Like I said, maybe we'll have to have him back to do a part 2 and really focus on either escape rooms and show us what he's up to with that. But he is a great resource if you are starting a path to doing escape rooms and gamifying your classroom. So I encourage you to reach out to him if you want to pick his brain a little bit about that.
Sure, definitely.
Dan, anything you want to add about anything to kind of close off what you have to say today before we show them how to make a monster quiz?
Okay, well, only that there is so much that you can do with Lumio and mixing it together with Smart Notebook. I think we've only scratched the surface. I mean, if you use your imagination or use other kinds of games or learning environments as a model, you can find ways to be able to bring those same dynamics into Lumio or use Lumio within that context. I mean, that's certainly what I did in my gamification. I took video game dynamics and then used Lumio and other software, other platforms to create real challenges, music challenges that kids really love.
Yeah, and I think anytime we can gamify things for our students, it makes it fun for us, but I think it makes it fun for our students as well. So I love that you're incorporating that into your classroom. I know there's small ways you can gamify your classroom and really more complex ways, but there's definitely a place to start for every teacher, no matter where you are in that process. So Dan likes to use several of the games, and Monster Quiz is one that kind of caught your eye. So I'm in Lumio. So if you go to lum.io and sign in with either your Google or Microsoft account, you can start using Lumio today for free. Once you're in here, you're going to click on this green Add Activities button, and you'll see that there's game-based activities under our templates, and we have 12 different game-based activity templates. I really encourage you to explore these and think about using them in different ways. So for example, Dan talked about that flip out for his digital breakout room. The first time I saw Flip Out, I was like, okay, digital flashcards, I see how I could use those, but I wanted to look through the lens of something I was trying to change about my classroom. And I was trying to make my classroom where my students were a little bit more autonomous and it was a little bit more student-owned learning. And so I instead looked at this as ways to create a choice board. So I use Flip Out oftentimes to create choices for my students of ways that they can share their learning. And then you saw Dan today used it actually as a way for students to create a code to break out of their digital EDU, breakout EDU. So I love that, being able to use these tools in different ways. So be creative with how you use these different games. They don't have to be used just the way that you see them. So the game you guys were interested in is this monster quiz. So when I click on monster quiz, all of our games are set up similarly, where there is basically a little wizard to help you through, which makes it nice and easy. So monster quiz allows for 2 types of questions, multiple choice and true or false. So I can choose one, and then I can add a question like, Dan is the man, the music man. I learned so much. And I would say that's true about you, Dan. I learned a lot today. So I'm going to leave that as true. And then I can add additional questions here. So Dan, what might be a question that you might ask students related to music?
Okay. Waltz time is waltz, yeah, TZ.
What is it?
TZ. A T.
Yep.
Has 4 beats to a measure. And that would be false.
So because it's false, I'm going to come and click in the circle next to false. And what's neat too is I can change the type of question. So I can switch from true, false to multiple choice questions as well. I'm just going to start with 2 questions just to kind of, for today's purpose, just to kind of see how it works. So I'm going to delete this question and just keep it to 2. Once you have all your questions added by clicking that add question button and then choosing the type of question by this drop down menu here, you'll click next. Once you've hit next, there's a couple of additional decisions you can make. One is, do I want to randomize the question order? So if you want to make sure that all your students are not getting the exact same question at the exact same time, you want to have that randomized question order turned on. If you do want the kids to have the exact same question, the exact same time, you can turn that off. So if I'm a kindergarten teacher with students that maybe need more support in reading or something along those lines, maybe I want to turn that off so I can actually read the questions to the students or something along those lines. But otherwise, I'm probably going to have that on. The other thing is I can give a time limit per question, or I can turn that off so there's no time limit. My students have as long as they need. Or I can keep that on, but I can adjust how long they have. So if I want to give them more time or less time, I can do that. So if I'm doing math facts, I might want to make it less time because I'm working on that automaticity. If I want them to have more time to think through like a more complicated problem, then I may give them more time. Or maybe if there's a lot of reading that they need to do, I might increase that time as well. Once you have that worked out, you're going to hit next. And then we have, for Monster Quiz, we have one main Monster Quiz template, which is this Monsters one. But we like to surprise you guys throughout the year with some fun additions. So right now we have the spring monsters, and around October, we'll have our Halloween monsters come out to play. So you can always have a different one. I think I'll grab the spring version today since it's available to us. Once you choose your background, you hit finish, and it has built your quiz for you just that fast. So it's a really fast and easy way to create a quiz for students to quickly review content. Might have an issue on my end right now, but it's a really quick and easy way for you to build a lesson and have it saved into your Lumio library for you to use and deliver with your students at any time. Monster quizzes can certainly have additional content before or after, or it could just be a monster quiz all on its own. Jennifer, any other questions coming your way?
I don't see any other questions.
Okay.
I did put all of the resources in the chats for everybody.
I certainly encourage anyone who has any questions or curious about any of the things that they saw to get in contact with. That'd be great.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I did
so
put your
Dan's,
email in the chat.
Yes, Dan's contact information is in the chat. He really is a great resource. I know that I've enjoyed the couple of times I've had to chat with him and really hear his story and hear how he's using these tools with his students. And as I said, if you are curious about the escape rooms or the gamification, I know Dan would love to share with you about that. But then also any of these other resources that he was sharing with us today as well. I know he'd be happy to chat with you about any of the cool things that he's doing for his students in his classroom. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I know for me, you guys saw I definitely don't have a background in music. It's always great to be able to hear how music teachers are using Lumio and Smart in their classrooms. I know I have that question on a really regular basis, and I know that music teachers often want more and more resources, of course, which I totally understand. So I'm so thankful that we were able to have Dan here today to share some of the resources that he's created over time. And thank you, Dan, for your generosity in sharing those with our participants today.
My pleasure.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you guys for bringing us a variety of different things to think about, and the feedback in the chat has been great. So all the insight that you shared, Dan, it's been incredible. We want to thank you all for joining our series. There's been lots of, it's still even happening, right? This is so good. Thank you. It was great. There's so much more coming through the chat. So don't forget to complete your feedback survey so that you can grab your downloadable certificate for this session, and there will be a follow-up email in the next few days with the recording and some additional Lumio resources. And also in the chat for future webinar sessions, I know coming up the first week of May, we have lots of getting started with Lumio, lots of getting started with Notebook, and with IQ on the Smartboard. So we've had all those great questions as you've been sharing this variety of different lessons and tools that you use in order to create your classroom. So we thank you a lot. And it's still coming in. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm going to add that somebody's asking about the feedback survey, so I'm going to add that to the chat. Make sure that you guys grab that. And once you complete the survey, you will get a link to your certificate. All right. Well,
All right.
thank you
Guys. Have a great week. I know it's Monday. We started Monday with a bang, so I'm excited about this. Now you guys have a whole rest of the week to kind of put some of Dan's great ideas into practice.
Yep, exactly.
That's good. I hope to hear from a lot of people. That's great.
And thank you so much. We really appreciate you spending extra time out of your very busy schedule to put together this webinar and to share all of your expertise with those that joined us today.
Sure. Well, maybe we can do it again.
That would be awesome.
Great.
All right.
Hey,
Take care.
thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.